Millions of Americans return from Thanksgiving, and experts are begging people to remain vigilant and get tested. Calls for revenge in Iran after a brazen assassination of a top nuclear scientist. And history is made in college football. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Monday, November 30th. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Carlo, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jill. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was low key, but very nice to just have a few days to sleep in. Not much going on, but it was nice. How was yours?
Yeah, same. I got to say, when you get a 4-day weekend, which is rare, nothing beats it. Maybe a 5-day weekend, I guess, but
Yeah,
no,
a week
4-day
off
weekend.
maybe.
Yeah, 4-day weekend, great. I had a very nice Thanksgiving, like yours. It was also low key. Ate a bunch, but yeah, ready to get back to it now that we're in the final haul this year.
We did a Zoom with my mom's side of the family. It was like a little cliche. I was like, all right, we're doing a Zoom Thanksgiving, but it was really nice, and we all went around and said what we were thankful for. And it
That's
was
sweet.
nice. It was nice to see everybody at home, and they're the same way I love sometimes the NBA draft and the NFL draft this year, which all of the players were home. There was something sweet about seeing everyone kind of in their own environment doing their own thing, and everyone went
Yeah,
around
I
to say
like
what
that.
they were thankful for and also what they were doing, right? Like, okay, so here's our plan for today. So there was something nice about it. I mean, I certainly look forward to next Thanksgiving when hopefully we could all be together.
Totally. Yeah, Thanksgiving, just a phenomenal holiday. Any holiday where you don't have to give any presents and it's just about like eating, I'm behind it.
Okay, so on to the news. Anyone who did travel over Thanksgiving should, quote, assume that you were exposed to the coronavirus and get tested this week. Also, avoid contact with people who are elderly or have underlying conditions. So, this is the plea from Dr. Deborah Birx. And it also followed Dr. Fauci's warning of a surge upon a surge that's going to be hitting in the next few weeks. In an abrupt change, New York City says it will reopen public elementary schools a week from today and abandon the controversial 3% test positivity threshold. Middle and high schools in the country's largest public school system will remain closed, at least for now.
It sounds like what New York City is going to do is they're going to try and move to get rid of the hybrid learning model, or at least give parents the option of sending their kids 5 days a week if they so choose. But it's a little bit unclear whether that's policy or whether they're just considering that. But look, maybe Mayor de Blasio was listening to us, Jill, when we questioned that 3% number a couple weeks ago as being sort of arbitrary and capricious. I do think in retrospect, I think I've probably said this in the past, but shutting down schools is probably going to go down as one of the worst decisions we've made collectively during the pandemic. And I'm not really blaming anybody. I'm just put aside that a lot of schools have a major staffing problem right now. There's a lot of teachers who are not coming in or retiring or leaving altogether. We've heard from a lot of school teachers and school administrators who have written in and been like, look, we're trying, we're doing everything in our power. And I completely appreciate that they're just in basically a no-win situation this year. And look, we may not have known better in the early days, but the data I think that's going to come out over the next year or so about the school year and the online learning gap is really going to be probably pretty sad, but also very enlightening. And I suspect it's going to show that students who are already having a hard time, even before COVID, were probably really the ones who were hurt the most. So again, I don't want to cast blame on anybody. I just think that when the data comes in, it's going to show that it just didn't really work, the whole online learning thing. Sometimes I just daydream about going back, going in a time capsule, going back to March, armed with like all the data and the knowledge that we have now, and just thinking about what we could have done differently. And I think schools is probably one of the top things, right?
But we probably wouldn't have done anything differently, Carlo, because we have all of that information now, and in terms of policy, it's not having any impact.
No,
In a
you're
lot of
right. You're right.
places, bars and restaurants are still open. Schools are closed in many places, and it's remote learning. And we have the info. So what's the excuse?
No, I guess it's the same thing we always say, right? It's the lack of political will, I guess. But you're right. I guess my time machine, maybe it's not going to happen.
Meanwhile, President-elect Biden has announced an all-female communications team. It's going to be led by Jen Psaki, a former Obama advisor, as White House press secretary. He's also said to have chosen Neera Tanden, who is a pretty divisive figure in Democratic circles. She'll be leading the budget office. Arizona and Wisconsin, meanwhile, set to certify their election results today. A recount in Wisconsin is over, and it reaffirmed Biden's win there.
Did you see the story last night that he fractured his foot?
I
It
did.
looks like the President-elect Biden is going to have to wear a boot for a while, at least for a few weeks, after he fractured his foot while playing with his dog Major over the weekend. So our thoughts with him on that, but not off to a strong start. I don't know if you've ever had to wear a boot around, but it really sucks. It's terrible, especially in New York.
It is
So I
terrible.
guess he doesn't have to deal with the subway, but yeah, it's not.
I
It's really
also
miserable.
heard, by the way, that he's not going to be bringing his dogs. He's going to be getting a cat at the White House. And then
What?
part of me was like, is this a real story? Yeah.
No, he has to
Is
bring he
that
has
was
to
that
bring
a
his
fake
dogs.
story?
I read that he was getting a cat, but I think it's in addition to the dogs. If he bans his dogs from the White House in favor of a cat, ooh, that's a scandal right there.
Like it's unacceptable. Overseas now, the supreme leader of Iran calling for definitive punishment over the killing of the country's top nuclear scientist. So Mohsen Fakhrizad was assassinated near Tehran on Friday in a sophisticated plot. It was thought to be the work of Israel's Mossad. Iran's hardline state media has been casting Fakhrizad as a martyr. There's growing concern now in diplomatic circles that this brazen killing could destabilize the region just as the new U.S. administration is coming in. One Iranian newspaper calling in an op-ed for a strike on the Israeli port city of Haifa. Israeli embassies around the world are on high alert. The UN, for what it's worth, urging restraint on all sides.
This was a big story over the weekend, probably the biggest. First of all, is there a worse job in the world than Iranian nuclear scientist? Like you are pretty much that's like a death sentence just waiting to happen. You are gonna get murked. It's only a matter of time. Um, I do worry a little bit about President Trump starting something in Iran on his way out the door, if for no other reason than it would really scuttle, I think, the Biden team's attempts to renegotiate the nuclear deal, which I think they've said is part of the plan. And I'm sure that has something to do with the timing of this hit. There was reporting this month that Trump had asked his advisors about a potential strike on an Iranian nuclear facility, and he was sort of urged to not go down that road just for all of the destabilization, like you said, that would come from that. So yeah, this is something we got to watch. I think the next 2 months, possibly the most dangerous period for Iran, maybe since the revolution back in the 70s, because I don't know. There's just a lot of cross currents here, and they're in a little bit of a box. I mean, they don't really have any. I mean, I guess they do have ways to respond, but I don't think any that they really want to actually go down that road, right?
And it puts Biden in a tough spot because if he were to want to rejoin the
Right.
nuclear deal, but meanwhile Iran does any form of retaliation against Israel or against the United States, it complicates everything. The
Yeah.
reason most are pointing fingers to Israel back in 2018, Benjamin Netanyahu actually had accused Fakhrizadeh of of working on special projects related to nuclear weapons, and then he even said, "Remember that name." And
Mhm.
that was 2 years ago. The actual assassination, by the way, it was straight out of a movie. I don't know if you followed what
Oh
happened.
yeah.
Basically, the scientist was on his way. He was in a car on his way to his in-laws, but surrounded by bodyguards. This is a very well protected person. An
This is how
empty
this is how
van
you
in.
travel to your and I'm sorry.
Oh
I
yeah,
was making a
exactly.
stupid joke.
With a police escort. So yeah, then this empty van in front of him just blew up. Then two motorcycles came whizzing by. They shot him. There were snipers involved. It was like, and then the power allegedly, or the
Yeah.
any of the closed circuit TVs that would have been monitoring were cut. I recently watched Fauda, the not Fauda, the Tehran, excuse me, on
Oh, is that
Netflix,
good?
I believe it. Oh no, excuse me, I'm mistaken, on Apple TV,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it kind of just like reminded me a little bit about sort of what they're trying to do there. I didn't finish it, kind of halfway through, but incredible
Well, it's, you know,
stuff. Just
it's
just
got
from the
Mossad written all
logistics
over it.
side of it.
Yeah, and there were 12 guys and they all got out. So yeah, definitely Mossad.
Exactly, they
Um,
all got out because of the cameras were cut. But yeah, but certainly complicates a lot of things, and you just have to hope that there's talks that are happening right now, and that this doesn't escalate. I do want to mention the death of somebody else who we may not have heard of, but chances are your habits changed because of him. And I'm talking about Tony Hsieh, who's the founder of Zappos.com. He tragically died on Friday from injuries sustained in a house fire. So he was known as a visionary entrepreneur. He was among the first to understand how to get customers to buy things on the internet, namely through a fanatical devotion to customer service. He famously put Zappos' 1-800 number on every single page of its website, even as other retailers try to make it virtually impossible to talk to a real human. He sold Zappos to Amazon for $1 billion back in 2008, and he just stepped down from running the company this summer. He was just 46 years old.
Terrible, terrible story. And yeah, I think I like how you said he, somebody you may not have heard of, but your habits changed because of him. Because I think that's really what this guy's legacy was. He pioneered an employment policy I remember reading about in my business class in graduate school that was called the offer, in which Zappos would pay new employees like a couple weeks after they started $1,000. Basically, they would say, "Here's $1,000 if you quit." They basically bribed them. The idea being that if you took up the offer, you didn't really have what it took to be with the company to begin with, right? As sort of a way to say like, what's your commitment to working here? But a million Harvard Business Review case studies have been written about Zappos, and they're really fascinating. I believe there's a book about Tony Hsieh and his rise. But you think about it, Jill, right? Think about back in 1999 when he started that company, right? No one was buying anything online. Maybe you had bought a book from Amazon.com at that point, but probably not even. You sure as heck weren't buying shoes. He figured out that you could get people to buy something online that you want to try on first. And I think once that dam was breached, it basically gave birth to the current, extravaganza in e-commerce that we see now, right? He was the guy who said like, no, people will buy shoes as long as you make it really super easy, to return them if they don't fit. So yeah, a fascinating guy. And I do want to mention, speaking of e-commerce, today is Cyber Monday, and there are lots of deals out there. Amazon, Target, Walmart, and small businesses too. I know, Jill, you and I have kept saying, if you can, do your shopping in small businesses this year. They really need it. But Xbox and PlayStation are the big ticket items to beat this year, in case you were wondering, but you're not going to be able to find them anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, good luck finding them. They're basically sold out. I've been doing pretty much all of my shopping on small businesses this year, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the
And
same.
I will say, if you want to talk customer service, there's nothing better than small business customer service, because I was ordering a bunch of gifts from this woman who does stuff on it. She uses Instagram to sell her items, and I had a question, and she's like, "Here's my cell phone number. Just text me. It's easier." So we were just texting back and forth on
Yeah.
Saturday night, figuring out gifts, and she had all these suggestions. And I'm like, you know what? I feel good. I feel good about this purchase. I mean, I spent way too much money, but I felt good about it.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, even just Tony Hsieh is to thank for that. Even though Zappos ended up being a huge company and a part of Amazon, he was really the guy to be like, customer service is part of the game in retail, right?
All right. Did you watch any football over the weekend? The
I
NFL's
did.
marquee regular season weekend did not go smoothly. The Broncos played their Sunday game against the Saints with a practice wide receiver at QB after all of the team's quarterbacks were sidelined under the COVID-19 protocol. It did not go well. Meanwhile, the Steelers-Raven matchup that was supposed to be the big Thanksgiving game postponed to Sunday and then postponed again because the Ravens have something like 18 players on the COVID list. It's supposed to happen tomorrow night.
We'll
Again,
see.
complications of trying to be normal in a time that's not normal.
Yeah, look, I think, the NFL with regard to the Broncos, the NFL is definitely trying to make an example out of them, and I don't really have a problem with that. Um, the Steelers, I think, should have been allowed to play. Like, why? The problem I have with the NFL policy is take a team like the Steelers, who are red hot, and they've been doing everything right this year, right? Their players have basically been saying, like, we're not going out, we're maintaining all of the protocols we're supposed to be, and they haven't really gotten anyone sick. Why should they be punished for the Ravens screwing up and not being? If the Ravens can't field a team because they're being irresponsible, that's their problem. So either forfeit the game or go out there and play with your backup players. I don't know, but meanwhile, in the NFC East, the New York Giants, first place with a record of 4-7, which is insane. They started off 0-5 and have won 4 straight, so a nice little comeback for them. Although that division is really sort of a sad sight.
I would agree with you on that, though. There's no, sorry, back to just this idea of who you punish. It feels unfair that a team that doesn't have the cases is getting punished. And we're seeing that in Big Ten football also, because you have to
Yeah.
play a certain amount of games. So if your game was canceled because your opposing team had COVID and then you can't finish out the season, it's just a complicated situation. Meanwhile, it was also a historic weekend in college football. Sarah Fuller became the first woman to play for a Power 5 football team. She kicked off for Vanderbilt in their game against Mizzou. Fuller is a goalkeeper for Vanderbilt's soccer team. She was brought in after Vanderbilt lost all of their specialists due to COVID protocols.
Incredible.
Incredible.
Fuller says that she plans to stick with the team if they'll have her. And the Vanderbilt Commodores say that they'd love to have her around for future games, even when their regular kickers are back. But yeah, what a sight! What a sight to see. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Has a woman played for not a D1 football team? Because she's not the first woman, I believe, to play, but she's the first woman to play in one of the big conferences. I'll have to check in on that. I'm not sure. I'll get back to
Either
you.
way, just to see her in the
Yeah.
uniform, I kind of got the chills. My husband was watching the game and he's like, come here, you got to see this. Meanwhile, the box office just saw the biggest opening of any movie since the pandemic. The Croods, A New Age, took in $9.7 million domestically, or $14.2 million over the 5-day Thanksgiving weekend, beating out Tenet for the best haul since Disney's Onward came out back in March. Box office analysts were pretty shocked by the opening. They say it shows the movie theater experience is resilient and could be set for a huge rebound post-vaccine.
I'm sort of leading into this idea that, next year is going to be amazing if we can get there. People always say, like, the Roaring '20s, right? Remember the Roaring '20s? They started after when the 1918 Spanish flu vaccine, or not vaccine, but when the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic ended. So I think that we could be in for sort of like a similar, boom. We just got to get through the winter. And it's only a few months, Jill. And my mom used to have this. It was like a clipping or something from like a magazine. I don't know what it was, but I just remember seeing it. It was on our fridge growing up, and it said, "When you're going through hell, keep going." And I just always loved that motto. I feel like that's the motto for us for like the next 3 to 4 months, right? I know
I love
I'm big
that.
on mottos. I know I'm big on mottos lately, but I think it's helpful. So when you're going through hell, keep going. That's what I'm going to say. We got to get to the spring, folks, and we can do it.
All right, let's do some predictions for this week. All right, last week, in terms of the holiday shopping season, I predicted it was going to be a blowout season because people weren't really spending money on vacations, so they're spending it on loved ones. So far, the numbers appear to be showing that. Looking at Black Friday, in-store traffic fell by 52% compared to last year, but online shopping was up 21.6%. Today is Cyber Monday. It's expected to be the biggest yet. So maybe it just might be too soon. I don't know if we have the numbers officially yet, Carlo, so we might need to wait a day or two.
Yeah.
Also, I was saying that air fryers, I thought they were going to be on top 10 gifts, gift lists on Amazon, maybe not for kids. There is an air fryer that is currently number 5 on Amazon, but it is in kitchen and dining. So,
Ooh, I don't know if
Carlo,
can I
you
give you
are
that
the
point?
I
I'll give you.
you
I'm gonna give you a half a
you're
point.
the
I'm gonna.
judge. I let you kind of decide how this goes
Uh,
in terms of points. My prediction
uh,
this week is that I think that New York Mayor de Blasio is going to once again change the policy on schools. I don't know what he's going to do, but I think just as parents and kids get really excited to return to in-person learning, potentially for some of these younger kids 5 days a week, which would be great
mhm.
for them. I don't know. I just think something's going to happen and he's going to change it again.
Well, I mean, never put it past Bill de Blasio to sort of shift with the winds and go back and change things and make poor policy decisions. So I think that's a good that's a good prediction, Jill. I'm going to give you half a point for the air fryer, for the record. By the way, what kind of weird game does I'm a participant in the game and yet I also set the rules. It's really not very fair, is it? Um, anyway, last week for my predictions. We were talking cabinet predictions. I made some pretty big ones. They did not come through. I said Pete Buttigieg for Secretary of Defense, Bernie Sanders for Labor. I don't think either of those are happening, but maybe they still could. I don't think he's made either of his picks for either of those positions yet. This week, I think there's going to be some type of escalation with Iran. I don't know. That's probably pretty vague, but I think something more than just words. Maybe there's another hit on an Iranian scientist. Maybe there's some sort of something in the Persian Gulf. We could be full circle back to January when we took out Soleimani to start this crazy year off. So I hope I'm wrong on this one, but we will see. So I believe, according to my ledger here, 3-2 is the current score. You're still in the lead, though both of us are whiffing lately a little bit.
I was giggling at not that you were saying that we're going to have escalations with Iran because it is the last thing that I want. I was giggling at like what game is this that you're a participant and basically the
Yeah.
judge when it's a subjective type of thing. It isn't like a very
Judge,
clear
jury, and
cut thing.
executioner.
And am I crazy for even agreeing to it? Carlo, it shows I have a lot of faith in you. To be fair.
Thank you. That's it. Okay, it's our podcast.
All right, guys,
we're
going to leave it there. That is what you need to know for Monday, November 30th.
All right, folks. See you tomorrow.